On today's episode, we are sitting down with a leader who is redefining what modern leadership looks like in the Bahamas and in the world.
Welcome aboard.
She's not just running one of the Bahamas' largest airlines, she's breaking barriers, chasing big dreams, and proving that the sky's the limit.
The incomparable Rexy Rolle.
Yeah.
On today's podcast.
Well, in the airline industry, Western Air has announced the appointment of Rexy Rolle as its new president, CEO.
For a period of time, you got to sacrifice this. What are some of those things you felt like you had to get to where you are?
Honestly, I don't have a lot of friends. I've never had a lot of friends.
Rolle becomes one of the few women in the aviation industry, joining a mere 8% of women airline CEOs.
As a leader, you are a servant. Our commitment is to the public.
And she has taken the realm of the next era. And when I tell you this conversation is going to be so fruitful.
I consider myself like a doctor, always on call. There's never a day that I'm not on call.
We just talk about everything as it relates to family business, leadership, being a girl boss.
Family is 100% a beautiful dynamic. When it comes to business, it's not always the primary factor.
In this episode, we explore what it means to lead with excellence, carry responsibility with grace, but also build something that is bigger than yourself.
Being a woman is so fun because
This is Finding Harmony. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite podcast. I am your co-host, Drew.
And I am your co-host, Gabrielle, and we are so excited to have you on Finding Harmony today.
Yes, we have an exciting episode, but before we dive in, we just want to thank everybody in terms of the support that we've gotten over the past few episodes, particularly with the relationship episodes. I see this as something that is very, very popular, and I think we'll dive back into that later on. But for right now, February is over. Now we gearing things up. We're starting, like I say, I guess this is the end of Q1 for the year. So we really get into the meat of the year, and that's why we wanted to bring somebody important on this podcast, and just one who can relate with us, but also on many different levels, but someone who we truly admire just as a Bahamian. We've seen her name on many different platforms. Honestly, Dav, where did you discover her, actually?
Travel Noir.
Travel Noir. So this is Dav booking, so I will let Dav introduce her guest.
Well, yes, I have been so excited to have this particular guest join us. I think I first reached out, I want to say it was maybe 4 or 5 months ago, just because we knew when we started out this podcast, we wanted to have conversations that were entertaining, but that also offered people value, and really gave people, public figures like yourself, an opportunity to speak in your own words. Sometimes people shape a persona around you based off of what they imagine. And so it's so great to just be able to sit down with you and pull back the curtain. And so I am so pleased to welcome the incomparable Rexy Rolle.
Yeah.
On today's podcast.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the
I am
party.
excited and happy to be here. I love what you guys are doing with this podcast. It's
Thank
awesome.
you so much, so much.
So many of our viewers, I feel like in terms of the public persona, quintessential girl boss. I remember that first time, I saw that article in Travel Noir. It's like Bahamian, multi-generational business owner in the aviation industry, like just doing incredible things. And so I feel like there's a little bit of me that's fangirling, but I'm going to pull it together. For those who do know your broader story, but maybe don't actually know it in your own words, who is Rexy Rolle?
Ooh, starting off
Starting off heavy.
Oh, first of all, Rexy Rolle is a believer in Christ.
Yeah.
Very good.
One. I lead with that. I know that's kind of weird for people sometimes in business. I don't shy away from that because God has not been quiet about his blessings to me. And so I'm not going to be quiet about my blessings or how grateful I am for the many blessings that he's given me. So I'm an attorney by trade, corporate and aviation. I got involved in aviation through my family. It is a traditionally family business that started with my parents when I was 13 years old. So Western Air is, celebrating 25 years of flight.
Wow.
25 years of service and dedication. And so I've always been involved. I mean, there's deeper roots in that my parents were really young when they had me as well. So, I was parentified. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you really get involved, and so, you know, I knew I wanted to be an attorney, but I also was really interested in entertainment and fashion and music and all that stuff. So, you know, I ended up going to law school and really focusing my internships into aviation and corporate-based internships. But ultimately, I mean, I knew that I had to come back and really add value. You'll hear me say that a lot. When it comes to family business, you know, people tend to think as long as you're part of family, no. We really care about what value you're bringing to the organization, even me. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, the family is over here, the business is over here.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say I'm so happy because we talked about this off camera. Family business. I'm from a family business. Gabrielle grew up in the family business. So we definitely understand, and we're definitely gonna, you know, dive into that. Yes. But even from that perspective and that story, was there expectation from your family to join the business, or this was just something that naturally led you to coming back?
Yeah, so I think as Western Air grew, I don't think my parents thought that it would be what it is now.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really this expectation because, you know, my dad was a pilot by trade. My mom had just finished university, and so she was super eager to get into business. And so the idea was just to fly between Andros and Nassau. That was it.
Wow.
With one plane. And so it really just took off. It really just took off. And so I think later on, as they realized that they had something, maybe I'm sure they hoped that I would be interested. But if you know me, you know that they could only just hope.
Hold you back.
You know, I was busy trying to be a pop star that didn't work out.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
so they just sort of, they did mention, and I always knew their challenges and their struggles. And you know, I grew up with GPUs and tires in our living room, dining room. Like, we didn't have a real office there in Andros initially, so all of that stuff was in our house. So I knew very much what was going on. I knew that they had poured every dollar of savings into this business, and we just had to make it work. So eventually, while they never pressured me, I gravitated to the organization.
Talk about how important that is in hindsight, right? Seeing, because when you said that, I'm thinking about my story, how important you felt like seeing it firsthand, the tires in the living room and all these things firsthand, seeing your parents, you know, go through that. How important you feel was seeing that now that you're in this position?
Yeah, it really helps to keep you grounded now because, you know, back then, again, we didn't think much of it. We just was so in the mix of everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, after school, I would be kind of annoyed that I got to go out to the airport and be writing out tickets and this and that. It was very, very manual back then. But now I'm so grateful to have those memories because it really fills my heart with so much gratitude that that's where we started from. And so, you know, when I'm talking with members of our team, and many of them are, you know, quite young, and they're talking about, but we haven't done this and this and that. I'm like, girl, do you know where we
started?
Exactly. You know, but we have that kind of relationship to, you know, laugh and talk about it. But yeah, it fills me with a lot of gratitude when I think about those old memories.
Yes.
You know, I've heard a lot of conversations, and Drew mentioned both of us grew up in the context of a family business. Now, my father is a pastor. He was a youth pastor, I want to say, for most of my life, for about 40 years almost. But separately on the side, he had 2 successful businesses going on because he was like, contrary to what popular belief, the church doesn't actually pay that well. And he had a family to support, and there were things to do. And he was always an entrepreneur by trade. His father was an entrepreneur. Each of his siblings are entrepreneurial, so it was definitely in the blood. And so for both of us, that was an experience that The same way you mentioned the fact, stuff being in your living room. I remember we would go on family vacations and I was maybe 5 or 6 and I couldn't rationalize why we were in all of these technical stores. My parents had a computer store and we drove around all day. And I remember I was complaining and my mom was like, this is how we go on vacation. Like, fix your attitude. Or I remember even being about 11 or 12 and it was like New Year's Day. We're doing inventory. I'm like, it's a holiday. We're supposed to be out playing,
Absolutely.
But that, I feel like being in entrepreneurship, being in business, particularly if it's first generation, you have to bring everybody in. You need all hands on deck. But it also gives you so much perspective. It helps you to be that much more grounded. People talk about, how do we raise kids who aren't entitled? I'm like, you have to show them. They can't imagine that the money just fell from the sky or this business just fell from the sky. You have to show them the building process. And then that, I feel like that gives them a sense of value.
So true. So true. And, I will say, I very much grew up on a budget and understood the value of $1. My little brother, though, had a different
experience.
Had a different experience.
Shout out to the little brothers.
And that's so true that, so we send him now during the summer to go, work in the maintenance hangar and sort of get some sort of experience and understanding that, we all work really hard to make this happen. And one thing that I would say is like, people often say, family business. Family is 100% a beautiful dynamic and part of our history and the organization, but when it comes to business, it's not always the primary factor. Because we have about 292 employees. There's about 15 to 20 of those individuals that are blood related. And I am proud to work with family, but I'm more so proud to work with family members that are actually good at what they do.
Let's talk about that.
Also people that became like family because of their dedication and consistency and just, downright, love for this organization and for us. And so we still have a family feel, but at the root of it, it's really value. What are you bringing to the organization? Not just because you're family.
So I kind of, this wasn't where I was going, but I feel like
I'm going to jump into something else too.
And I've seen it in the context of Drew's family business in particular. It was much bigger than the business my parents own. But did you ever face any encounters or did you feel a lot of pressure from relatives, loved ones who perhaps did not have that much value to bring to the table? Sometimes we give out participation prizes in the Bahamas, I think, a little too often.
You're gonna get Rexy in trouble.
To the point that people come to expect them. Hey, my last name is Rolle, or X, Y, and Z. Did you have any dynamics like that that you had to navigate?
100%. 100%. And that's never easy. I think the dynamics of any sort of human interaction, you have to be, but especially when it's family related and business, you have to be careful. I will say that primarily the family members that I work with, I don't have to have those conversations with them because they are so, honestly, I'm not just saying that because they're family, but they are really good. Like one of our most senior captains, his standard and how much pride he takes in what he does as a captain. I never have to have that kind of conversation with him or family members that are in the administrative aspect, but I have had in the past and they're no longer with us. And so that tells you exactly what I feel. Like sometimes things are just not aligned and we do have, those people love to use that word when it's convenient for them, but we finally, okay, so does that mean that you go above and beyond or that means that you don't? Which one?
Sheesh.
You gotta pick.
So yes, I value that. That's at the root of what, we have as a family business, but it can't just be the only thing.
Right. In terms of, well, first of all, when it comes to Western Air, what I admire about just the company and the brand on the whole is you feel that level of excellence I feel so. You see the difference, respectfully. I'm not.
A difference from who?
You know, from the stewardess to the counter people, you know, from, you know, from the top to the bottom. And obviously, understanding leadership, you know, things could get, it starts from the top, you know what I mean, in terms of leadership. And then in terms of you taking over the realm, just talk about that process. Did you have to, you know, win people over? Like how was that?
Question.
You know,
That's
especially
really
one being or family business, you know, people, nepotism, all
they
this
just
stuff.
bring their daughter in here.
Let's just add on the fact that respectfully, you are a woman as well.
Yeah.
And leadership tends to be much difficult, you know, when it comes from a female perspective. So how did you handle that process? And like, what are some of your keys to that success?
Yeah, that's a really great question because many times when we are putting people in our organization in leadership roles, and some of them may even be younger than, you know, the rest of their team, and they often ask me that question, and I always say right off the rip, allow your work to speak for itself. But beyond that, I mean, yes, initially I think people were like, well, what's she come here to do? When I came back, I think it was like almost 10, 11 years ago. But I wasn't focused I really wasn't focused on recognition or trying to say, I'm this. As a leader, you are a servant.
Yeah.
You are here to serve the people. Our commitment is to the public. And so if I could do any role in this organization, I would do it. If I need to clean a plane, I will clean a plane. I never come in it thinking that any role is bigger or more important than the other. We are truly a team. And so I think initially it was more so me showing that I am in this, not because I'm the daughter of blah, 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 but because I truly have vision and clear dedication and a work ethic that's going to show you that we're going to move in the right direction. And they started to trust that, and they saw progress happening over time. One thing I will say about being a woman entrepreneur or woman businesswoman is that we have to also celebrate male allies. You know, it's important to have recognition. Unfortunately, in a male-dominated field, I notice, and I'll give my dad a bit of credit here because he is a stew-fish-eating Andrus man through and through. But he always taught me that I could do anything, I could be anything, and that don't let nobody push you around. Don't let anybody tell you that it's this when you know it's that. Be honest, be fair, be direct, and don't be scared of nobody.
Yep.
And so even though I am a daughter, he raised me like I was limitless, you know, and of course, along with my mom. And so, who was also fearless. It was her vision to have Western Air. People often think it's him because he was a pilot, but it was her idea. I say all this to say, not just my dad being the male ally, but also men in our organization who have been in the airline industry for decades, much older. They're literally decades older than me. And I watched them over the years say, where we would walk into a room and people would assume, well, we should talk to the guy with gray hair. And they would say, she's the decision maker. So, and it wasn't just because, you know, they thought that, you know,
You're right. This is the boss.
It honestly came through working collectively hand in hand with them, and they saw where the company was going and where I wanted it to go. And so they trusted the vision, and I'm grateful for that because it allowed me to continue to spread my wings, pun intended.
So, was the title of, I believe it's CEO?
Yes. Now,
was that your official entry point into the company?
No.
So what was that?
Yeah, I started as VP of Operations and General Counsel. So the airline, Western Air, did not have a general counsel at the time. I was a new attorney. And so that's the angle that I came in on, really just focusing on operations, the day-to-day, but also the legal compliance. And I got my hands dirty very quickly. We really wanted to open up a terminal in Grand Bahama, and we had a lot of red tape tied with that. And it was me typing away, and I really got my feet wet very quickly. And so, and as wins came, you get your confidence because you're like, okay, I actually kind of know what I'm doing here. And so, I did that role for about 9 years. And then I was named CEO about 2 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
So not to kind of derail that trajectory, but you mentioned the red tape, like just getting into Grand Bahama. And I also think about just the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's hard to kind of break some of this stuff down, but how difficult was that to just, okay, not just the Bahamas, but we're going to be servicing, neighboring countries as well?
Yeah. People have no idea.
That's okay.
Holy smokes.
Right.
Like, I mean, the level of complexity in which we're operating in terms of what happens behind the scenes, I'm not even talking systems. I'm just talking things and compliance and regulatory things. That's why sometimes when you look at, certain fodder and conversations, you're like, you guys have no clue. The
Like we just pulled up and put a plane here.
Yeah. I mean, like we have to be vetted thoroughly.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we have to be constantly audited from not just our regulatory bodies here in the Bahamas, civil aviation, but also the FAA or any other authority in the country that we service. And these are ongoing inspections all throughout. And that's why, I applaud all commercial carriers that are consistently showing up on the day-to-day, because I know there's so much happening behind the scenes. And so, to go to the United States, that was a 1.5-year process in the making of just paperwork and filing and proving and showing yourself and inspections and just so much. And even the certification with the newer aircrafts that we're flying now, that was a 1-year process with civil aviation that we're working on. And, so these are not, just overnight things. These are things that we are chipping away at every day,
Wow.
You mentioned the fact that you were a new attorney or relatively new attorney and then thrust into general counsel role, thrust into VP of operations. And of course, you're familiar with the business, having grown up in it, but you weren't necessarily working it day to day.
Yeah.
What would you say was the steepest learning curve that you had to navigate?
Steepest learning curve. That's a good one. I think the importance of flexibility and just being very fluid in the way in which with the trends. And when I say trends, I mean like market trends. I think it's very easy to say, I would love to set a schedule. This is what we're offering. This is what it is. Package it up nicely and have a nice day. No, these are living, breathing schedules that need constant review to ensure that you are meeting the needs and the desire of your targeted clientele. And so I think while I knew that, going in and really seeing that, it became really important to be more tapped in terms of what our communities actually needed from us.
Slightly switching gears, entrepreneurship has become a buzzword.
Yeah.
And I think that so many people are like, yeah, I just want to be the boss and I just want to take home all the money. I think they have a version of it that's in their head that's like, you pull up to the airport, they empty out the cash registers, you drive back to your house, and then you roll around in it and you show up for a couple minutes, you shake a couple hands. It's this soft life experience. But we know that entrepreneurship has a high price, for families, for individuals, for your personal life, even for your professional life. You mentioned the fact that you wanted to get into the music industry, to do different things in terms of entertainment. What is the cost of entrepreneurship been for you?
It's certainly been all consuming. I'm not even going to shy away from the fact that I am sort of a recovering workaholic. And I don't know if I'm fully recovered, but it's just, there is not a day that goes by. It doesn't matter where I'm at, where I am in the world. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not doing something Western Air related or work related. And that is something you simply, and it's not a complaint, it's just the reality.
The nature.
I recognize that there's privilege in what I'm able to do in terms of having flexibility in terms of where and when I work. However, I don't get to turn it off.
Right.
Always.
I don't get to turn it off. And a lot of times, people will say, so what's your schedule like? Or I consider myself like a doctor, always on call. There's never a day that I'm not on call. And my team would be able to tell you, because I have an open door policy with everyone, and they use that, and they'll call me, and it's every day. And so, of course that has its cons because, you don't always have time for yourself, but I really am grateful to do what I do. So it really isn't a complaint.
So I was actually, so funny enough, I wasn't sure that's where you're going, but I was actually going to tap into that because honestly, listening to you two, you remind me a lot of my sister as well. Family business, girl boss, etc. Right? And we could cut this part out if you don't want to, right? What do you feel, if you don't want to have it in there, but what do you feel is like something that you felt that you had to sacrifice in order to be where you are now? Because sometimes people don't understand, especially from a woman's perspective. There's a lot of expectations by this age, but there's also dreams and aspirations. What are some of the things that when a girl is looking at you, like, I want to be like Rexy, but it's like, hey, for a period of time, you got to sacrifice this. What are some of those things you felt like you had to get to where you are?
Well, one thing I would say is what comes with this is always a lot of, preconceived thoughts about who you are. And it's not been great for dating.
It's okay. I understand.
No, because I'm very conscious of the fact that because of my role, it requires me to be, very firm in the things that I'm doing. And so if I am dating, I try to turn that all the way off and be very present and, feminine and cute and all those things. However, I think it's hard for people to separate the two. And so even if I'm like, oh, babe, we should go here, she's bossing me around, and it's like, I'm just
that's me.
And that's a real thing. I think intimidation is a real thing. And that's really unfortunate because I absolutely love what I do, but of course I do want a family. And my mom has been asking for grandkids, but
that's right. It's the clock.
Is this working? I don't know. But all in God's time, I'm sure.
Right.
And also at the same time, I don't want it so bad that I want to rush anything either. It has to be the right person and right that. But that's a real impact in your life because also when you are super busy, you're not going and meeting people and you're also super guarded about who you do meet. People can be very
bad intentions.
And opportunistic and all the things. And so it's not the easiest to navigate that. And even with platonic relationship, it's hard to find community, right? It's really hard to find community and like-minded individuals that are have their own thing going on and that doesn't really care that much what you going on, but they still respect it.
Yep.
Because there's always, people go two angles. They either, one, are super almost obsessed about it and focused on it, or they don't want to acknowledge it at all.
Wow.
They don't want to acknowledge what you do, and it's like, that's a part of who I am, a huge part of who I am.
You can't cut that
So it's
out.
like, it has to be just organic and natural and balanced. So that's been honestly a real challenge.
That's real.
But
Understood. No, the reason why, like I said, I feel, especially just this day and age, I'm just going off. I'm like, I love
Go
it.
for it. Go for
I be seeing too much good women out here, boss ladies, and these dudes be like, what y'all doing? What y'all do? No, honestly, because I understand, especially, and I always, when I meet ladies like you, I be like, listen, the guy is out there because it's going to take, I want you to tell your story because I know what your brother said, but it's going to take a certain level of a man to come into you guys' life, because there's a certain level that of knowledge, of experience that you guys acquire, a regular dude can't handle, you know what I mean? And to be recognized. Like, can you tell that story with your brother said?
I will try to remember it well. So, I had a hard time finding love. I'll say as well, not for lack of trying, not for lack of dating, but I remember this particular guy who I thought, that was going to work out. And it was the weekend of his wedding. And I called my brother and I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't get it. Everybody seems to be figuring it out except for me. And he was like, you're not a regular woman. Oh no, he said, it's going to take long. He said, it's going to be a while. He said it to me when I was 25. I got married when I was 31. He said, it's going to be a while. He said, you're not a regular young lady, and the average guy cannot be with you. And he said, it's someone very special who's going to see everything that you are, not be intimidated by it, and able to walk alongside of you. And he said, it's going to be a while because you're great. Because I was like, if I'm so great, why is it taking so long? He was like, because you're so great that it takes somebody very special to come along. And he actually, at our engagement party, he got up and he told that story. And I remembered it very distinctly. And it is true, the more that you're exposed to, that's the thing. Unfortunately, the higher that you rise, the smaller that your pool gets. But what I do tell people is, it only takes one. I only have one husband. You know what I mean? I've only been proposed to that one time. And I said yes. You know what I mean? So to that other end, like, I think because scarcity mindset can cause people to settle, or can cause you to panic and always be involved in a situationship when there is better. You know what I mean? 100%. And if God is able to take the dream of, or your father's non-dream, just taking that one plane, and now you have a brand that it's in the U.S. that's all over the Bahamas. Y'all just added North Eleuthera, which I'm so excited about. Then he's well able to bring the future Mr. Rolle.
Well able, absolutely.
Right. And this is Finding Harmony, by the way. So we talk about all areas of life, you know what I mean? I love that. But kind of switching gears, right? How are you managing? Because now your name is bubbling, you know what I mean? I think it was on the Shade Room one time I saw you. It was like female entrepreneur, Black excellence, all that stuff. How are you handling even that pressure of just more eyes on you now?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing I've learned is that, don't focus too much on the praise, because that means you'll also have to focus on when they're throwing you under the bus.
Right.
Don't focus on the noise. I appreciate it, but I really try not to focus on that. I focus on doing a quality job, and overall our organization, the health of it inside, and hopefully that reflects externally. And so that's what I try to focus in on. I mean, it's fun. I mean, you get connected with a lot of cool people. Yeah. And then, of course, that has its upside and its downsides too, because, you meet a lot of strange people. But also, social media in general has played a very, I would say, overall positive role in how things has evolved for me personally, as well as for the company. So, I mean, while it may have its, its downsides, overall, it's been a very positive experience for us. It helps to get the word out there, not just with our wonderful clientele here in the Bahamas, but also people that are coming to the Bahamas. They're always so curious as how do you fly throughout the islands of the Bahamas? And we're the first ones to say Western Air, you know?
Yeah.
And so my personal story, sort of going out there in a global way, really also helped bring in even international clients who were like, we want to go on the airline with the lady who runs it, you know.
Yeah.
And or it just brought on more curiosity, the fact that you would be surprised how many people don't know that there are so many gorgeous islands all throughout the Bahamas. And so they're like, wait, what's Eleuthera? And they just don't know. And so sharing our story also ends up sharing more about this beautiful country that we get the privilege of to live in, you know? So it's great.
Yeah, I love that. And people underestimate the power of social media in the corporate realm, personal branding, you know, that, like you say, how your personal brand is helping, you know, help market, you know, the company and the organization. So it's great, though. Sorry.
No, I know you earlier on, you mentioned the fact that, you know, when you were abroad, when you're doing your studies, your internships, you kind of had this feeling that you would need to come home at some point. Did that manifest into a conversation? And what did that conversation coming from your parents' angle look like towards you?
Yeah. So my parents did not pressure me. They did not say, you need to come back and run. But my grandfather, God bless his soul, he absolutely.
It's like, they're not going to see it.
He absolutely was, you know, every time I would come home for the holidays, he'd say, you know, you need to come back. He stuttered. I say, you need to come back home and help run the company. And I'm like, okay, granddaddy, you know, maybe later. I thought I was gonna, you know, I was literally, I think, in my last round to be in this like tech startup general counsel position, and I in San Francisco, and that was the vibe, you know, that was what I thought was gonna happen. And then the more things unfolded in terms of needing to open up that terminal in Grand Bahama, I saw where my parents by that time had been working nonstop for about, I think, 15 years.
Wow.
They were burnt out. They didn't say that,
Right.
but they were burnt out because they were just sort of dialing in at this point. And so when I came back, the first thing I wanted to focus in on was operational flow. And so and the more we did that, the better things got, the more market share you were able to get. Say all that to say, they weren't really pushing me at all, but my grandfather did, and he sort of placed that seed in my head that like maybe that is something I should do. And then the things that was happening around that time just made it more evident that it made sense to come home.
Can we like sidetrack a little bit? Can you talk about that adjustment period from coming home?
Right,
Because that honestly, everybody go there. Especially in the States, if you've been a while in the UK for a while and you come home, it's like, oh my God. And I had my moments, and it's blossomed over time. But what about your adjustment period? How was that? And don't front on the podcast.
No, I won't. So a little thing is that I actually grew up in South Florida. So we moved there when I was 6 years old. So I was there. And then we came back to Andros around like when I was 12 or so, and I was at North Andros High.
Wow. Okay. You weren't even in Nassau.
I was in North Andros High. Okay. And shout out to Mastic Point. I'm from, I'm an Andros girl. And so I went there for 8th and 9th grade, and then I went to boarding school in Orlando. And from there, I was always away. I went to school in Canada. I did my master's in Florida. I did law school in San Diego, and then I came back. So I say all that to say that it wasn't just a transition into, I really didn't have much experience living in the Bahamas as much as, one may think. And so, but I always understood the I don't know the right word, but I don't know the dichotomy, the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of appreciated that it was so drastically different from what I was doing. I could have appreciated the aspect of it being the island type thing, whereas I think we tend to take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated this fact of this sort of tropical experience, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to like amenities and things that you're used to having,
Amazon.
right? You know, it's that difference. And then I'll also say, just again, going back to community, I tend to stick to myself in general, but that's even harder when I'm here and when I'm, you know, in Grand Bahama. It's all, I'm just at work
zone in,
either at my home office or there at the airport. And so, you know, I continue to travel quite often to kind of still feel the balance, you know, that kind of way, or else I'll get a little stir crazy. And that's why I think that's what helped me with the transition. Was I would come in, be fully focused, work for like a month, 2 months, go travel, come back,
refresher,
do the same. And then I started to get more integrated into the community, and it was great.
Yeah, I feel especially because, you know, the topic always has been like brain drain, you know what I mean? The generation before us, they build, you know, the country, then they have these children, then these children just go off, get educated and never come home and all that stuff. And honestly, I've been an advocate to like trying to reel some of our young adults home because I'm not gonna front, you go through the phase of like, wait a minute, oh right, but then at some point it clicks, especially now, respectfully, when you look around the world, you start to appreciate what we have here in our little country and amongst all these islands. And I just remember this is like a year or two in, and I was driving on the airport road, and I just looking up at the sunny skies. And I'm like, wow, we are so blessed. This is home. This is the Bahamas.
Yes.
And it for that point, it hit me. And I was just like, man, if I could still make it from here. And like you say, the trips, you need the trips. I married my wife too, right?
But flying throughout the islands of the Bahamas, I tell you no lie, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
When you look at those waters,
Stunning.
there's absolutely nothing like living in the Bahamas and flying throughout the Bahamas. I fly a lot of places, but the beauty, the beauty of where we live is insane. It's literally insane. So I'm grateful for it, but you always have to have a little mix up and balance.
You gotta mix it up.
Yeah.
So for the girl bossies who are watching, right? You talked about the fact that when, on the one hand, you know, I found out about you on Travel Noir, and Drew said the Shade Room and different things, and I mean it's amazing. But that's a headline, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I know you.
Yeah.
But if I approach you, I could come at you with all of these things that I have in mind. You talked about the reality of the challenges that presents in dating as well as in friendships. For any woman who's in a high-powered profession or just by nature of what they do popular, or, you know, you have these characteristics that could be desirable to other people for good reasons and for bad reasons. And I'm sure even, you know, your relational dynamics would have changed too. Like people feel like, oh, you know, you got to be the boss and now I don't know you. What are your, I guess, vetting processes for friends, for allowing people into your close circle when you know that, you know, not everybody has good intentions towards you?
Ooh. Yeah, that's an excellent question.
I don't know.
In all honesty, now that I think about it, I don't know if I've let anyone in my close circle in the past like 10 years. The friends that I have are friends that I've had much longer than that. Now I'm friendly. I'm generally a very friendly person. You walk up to me, I'll have the biggest conversation. And I love hearing people's stories, like genuinely. That's not on no fake stuff. Like I like hearing people's stories, and especially, you know, if they have a travel story and they want to tell me, well, this lady told me this at the counter. I'm like, what'd she say? You know, so I enjoy being engaged in that way. But that's to be honest, it is something, if I could be a bit vulnerable, it is something that I struggle with in terms of, again, building that close community with people that you can actually trust. that's hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard. You know, I always say like my mom is my best friend.
Yep.
She really is. I tell her everything. And I have a few close friends, and I have, you know, a couple close cousins that, you know, I'll talk to here and there. And but honestly, I don't have a lot of friends. I've never had a lot of friends, but especially now, I don't have a lot of friends. Yeah. So to be honest, I'm not quite sure how to frame that, because I don't know if I have much experience
It's not strange.
in letting people in that way.
No,
Yeah.
it's not
It's the cost to be
strange.
the boss.
Yeah.
And honestly, growing up in a family business, like you say, your parents really become your best friends because they're the ones who giving you good advice, and just the ones, you know, if you tell them something, it ain't going nowhere.
It ain't going anywhere.
It's things like that. So
Friend have friend, as people like to say.
Now that you mention it, I'm like, wait, no, I don't have any new close friends. Like my friends have been my friends for about at least 10 years. And then I take it one step further. I grew up, I didn't have a sister, but I did have a brother. But I have female cousins out the wazoo, and
she came equipped.
our parents raised us to be friends. And so I have maybe 3 close friends, and then I have my cousins.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. 100. Like my mom has, you know, a bunch of sisters, and they are so incredibly close. And I've always said she has built-in best friends.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know. I just don't.
That's
I
all
just
right.
don't
No
have
new
that.
friends. That's what it is.
I guess why I'm like, you know, thinking about it is because I want that. I want that.
You just don't know how to approach
I
it.
don't know how
hard to combine.
you know, pursue that. I remember going to different events, like I would have, you know, different speaking events, and I'd be so, you know, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like, I'm gonna meet friends, you know, and people at these organizations, and especially, I hate to say it, like, you know, women empowerment, these events. Listen, I'm sorry. And I, like, not all are bad. Because I am going to a few in
I'm
March.
about to say, we ain't trying to stop no bookings. No, it's not.
I'm going to a few in March. I'm sure they're great. But the fact is, I remember one event in particular, I think was in New York, and I went there, and there were like going to be a few other attorneys on the panel, and businesswomen, and I was so excited, you know, and we had all exchanged social media, you know, follows and all that stuff before the event. So I was so looking forward to meeting these women, because I'm on the search for my community, right? And people who are going through similar things that I'm going through. And when I tell you, some 100% were very warm and kind, and we're still in contact today. But there were like 2 or 3 that literally, I mean, mean, just incredibly mean. And like, you know, I remember walking like, hey, I don't do hugs. And I was like, and these are some of the most vocal people about women this,
supporting
women
each
that.
other.
And I'm like, and after that happening like 2 or 3 times at different events, I was like, got it. Okay. So, you know, the exchange that we may have had on social media, I'm truly that. I'm exactly what I portray. And so I, you know, will see people, and I want to give them their flowers, and I want to talk and engage, and it's not necessarily reciprocated. So it's sort of like, okay, on to the next. Yeah.
Wow.
I saw a tweet that was like, the biggest joke of our generation is women empowerment seminars being hosted by mean girls. And it's like, it's the truth, you know, unfortunately. So, and then I think what happens is a lot of these women find themselves in positions of power, and they're so terrified, like, oh, they let me in, I'm a woman, I can't let any more women in here.
Yeah.
You know, like low key, maybe not even consciously, but it is something that causes them to kind of push down the next girl, which is tragic.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm asking the girly questions, probably because I'm the girl in the discussion.
Take it away, girl.
But just, I can only assess from your social media and the way that you present. You know, you're very beautiful, you're very stylish, very put together.
Thank you.
Even from the shoes, right? They're giving. I hope the camera is getting the shoes. So it seems like you lean very much into your feminine. You're very comfortable with who you are as a woman. You know, sometimes in corporate structures or male-dominated areas, even when you have a woman who is powerful, who's intelligent, who's articulate, there almost is a pressure to harden or take away anything that looks soft, take away anything that's pretty or soft or feminine. How do you navigate being your whole self in every environment?
I realized very early on that everyone is multidimensional and everyone likes having these different sides to them. And I realized as well that I was not going to be held in this mold of what a quote unquote attorney should look like. And I remember like making posts about that on social media, that I was going to be intentional about that, that I wanted to dress how I wanted to dress. Now, obviously, working the way I do allows me that ability to do that. But I would say, you know, being a woman is so fun because of this. You know, I enjoy that aspect of being soft, of being feminine, and I love fashion. I love, you know, looking good and wearing what I feel like wearing. But what I love in that is that it does not take away anything from my substance. And I think more and more we are seeing that every day, that you no longer can judge someone by their cover.
Yeah.
And so I always want to be sort of a testament to that. And I noticed that the more I advocated for that or talked about that, a lot of women who like reached out to me like, you know what, I'm not only, and I did that while I was trying to put out music early on, because I wanted to also show like I can pursue this and do this. And what I loved was that there were women who were like judges, engineers, who's like, listen, I do this, but I'm also a fashion major, and I'm also opening up a clothing brand, and I want to do this, and I have a bathing suit line, but I'm a architect. You know? And it was so many of us, and I was like, so why are we making this so awkward for us to be sexy, for us to be ourselves, for us to really embrace the femininity of being a woman? So I enjoy it, and I think it actually helps in business, not in the way people would think, but just in terms of you lean into those natural aspects that come to you, however you want to consider it, whether it's, they always say that women are more emotional. I don't necessarily think that's the case in business. I feel like women can be nurturing and kind and caring, but also direct. And I've found that many times when I work with women, I've had really great experiences where I couldn't get a deal done, particularly with a guy, and then they switch and some other happened and a woman comes involved, and it's just like, boom.
Like, we're here.
Because she has a tendency to be reasonable and fair, and that sort of comes from being feminine, you know, being able to hear both sides and bring some sort of resolve. So I think it's all a part of being a whole person.
I'm like this close to asking you to sing.
Yeah.
No. Well, it's been nice.
But on a real, right? Well, as I transition into this, you know, final portion, I want to first just thank parents, right? In terms of parents who have laid the foundation for their generation, because I'm a beneficiary of, you know, my parents putting in the hard work and me picking up the mantle, right? So shout out to Ms. Rolle parents as well, right?
Mr. Rolle too?
No, I'm Ms. Rolle as in Rexy's parents. That's why I'm
very good.
You know?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But honestly, what I was actually going to say was, now, they have done the groundwork and they've done everything to get the business to where it needs to get to. And then you join in, right? What is something that you felt that you had to unlearn or help them unlearn in order to get the business to the next level?
Bro.
Right. Because I am definitely in that portion of like, we got to get.
There are still some unlearning happening. If you know my dad, like I said, he cussed like a sailor up and down. I said, that stuff is not okay.
Not right. We in the new phase. Right.
Okay. You know, but there's a lot. They will be the first to tell you the company that we're running now is not the company that they ran.
Started. Yep.
They know that it's like two different worlds, that what we're operating.
Even the employees,
and
right?
and I will, give them their props in that they literally over 10 years ago was just like, you know what, I think she got it. Okay.
Yeah, you
and
got
and
it.
and they really, have allowed me to have quite a bit of autonomy in our decisions. And I still look to them for really large decisions and direction-wise strategy. We talk about certain things, and I give them little projects.
Right.
So now you're the boss.
Keep them right.
To keep them busy, but we still make decisions, at the end of the day. But the family aspect, of course, that dynamic is never easy because you're just
Constantly.
you're always sort of debating certain things. But one thing I will say, when it comes to business, we may not agree on every other thing, but when it comes to business, we usually do come together, and we're usually on the same accord as to direction wise what we should do.
Right.
So I'm grateful for that, because we really we might fight about other things, but when it comes to business, we're very clear on where direction wise we should do. And so that's been easy.
Did you, and this is for people, because a lot of times people ask me a lot of family business questions, so I'm just like throwing that.
Yeah.
Do you guys, did you used to have family like business meetings at home or in the office? Like, how was that approach? Like, was it serious? Like, what does that look like in the Rolle family?
Yeah. For a long time, we would have these 1 to 2 hour long conversations every morning, like a WhatsApp group chat conversations, and I had to cut that out.
Yeah, 2 hours on what?
I was like, I have stuff to do, so now, it's more so voice notes here and there. And then, when it's necessary, we come together and make those decisions. But yeah, we don't, bother going into an office per se, but when we're all together, we will have those conversations that's necessary. Or if we have to sign things, and we come together and really make larger board decisions. But we're always talking about the business, and I think that's a great thing. But there's also
annoying.
All right, guys, let's just be in the moment.
Like Christmas,
right?
Like,
let's just eat the turkey.
So
we've had to put up a little bit of boundaries there. Like, not all the time are we always talking about work, but it still always comes back.
It always comes back to it. You can't run from it. If you're in family business, that's just gonna happen.
What do you say to people who try to dismiss you as a Nepo baby?
Nepo baby. Well, I was asking someone the other day, like, what exactly is a Nepo baby? Because if I was a part of something creating and a part of its growth in the early stages, if I was on, Taco Bell budget, on the value meal budget, does that count?
Right.
That's a Nepo baby, maybe. But, I don't shy away. I don't shy away from the fact that there is privilege in coming from a family that established something. I often think about, people whose parents, for example, had a hair salon or or a plumbing business. It's all the same concept, where perhaps your parents or a parent or a guardian had the vision to do something, and now you're gravitating to it, or you want to be a part of it. There is privilege in that, because there's power in numbers. There's 100%. However, again, it goes back to value. How many family businesses do you know that did not continue? Because even if the child got involved, they just didn't bring the knowledge or experience that was required to make it work, And every day I'm constantly trying to improve myself, constantly trying to improve the organization, not because, and I'm doing that because it's required of me as a CEO to know what is happening in our business and how we can constantly progress. And so I don't feel any way about it, because I know the truth and I know how hard I work. And I think there's always this association with Nepo babies in terms of them not working hard to get where they got. And I don't really have an opinion about it. I just know I'm focused in on the work that I have to do, and it's done well for us thus far, and hopefully, God willing, it will continue.
Oh, how do you think privilege became a bad word?
Ooh, now that's deeply rooted.
That's a deep question.
Because there's so many different types of privileges, and so I immediately went to race. And that and in the fact that there being certain privileges depending on the color of your skin, and that exists also here, guys.
Yep.
Hey, that's another conversation.
Oh, yeah.
For another day.
Right.
That exists here.
Yep.
How we treat our own
Yep.
in comparison to how we treat our guests.
Yep.
Weird.
Wow.
Very
As
weird.
if we weren't
Weird.
spending money in these establishments.
Weird.
Very weird.
I'll just say it like
With the
that.
with the same people on the dollar bill that look just like us. It's very weird.
especially in business.
Yeah.
And it all, I call it out privately. I don't usually call it out publicly because it's not a hit towards anyone in particular, but it's a cultural thing that we tend to give our best to our guests. And maybe that's historically just what we've always done. But I really, really firmly believe that when we make decisions about, for example, our scheduling and all of this, I'm focused on Bahamians.
Yes.
Why? That's our bread and butter.
Yep.
And those are folks that I'm committed to. With that being said, I 100% recognize that we are a tourist-based country.
Yeah.
And so we welcome our visitors. We also prioritize them. And so we do have to sort of have this balance in how we foster this service towards them. But I strongly believe that as Bahamians, we have to give each other the same privilege and grace and kindness and hospitality as we do our guests.
Yes.
Amen.
As we do our guests. I could tell you stories for days and things that, international carriers get versus what a domestic carrier would get.
Wow.
Privileges in the airport itself, in the way in which we treat each other as if we are second-class citizens in our own country.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have the control. And it doesn't mean that you downgrade in any way your visitor's experience. Not at all. We know they're really the bread and butter of this country. I get that. But we also can now extend that same service to our own.
Yeah.
I got a bit off topic there, but
That's all right.
I'm passionate about
I felt that way.
I had to let you cook on that one. So just honestly, just wrapping things up, man, because this has been a fruitful conversation. What do you hope young women entrepreneurs will take from your story?
I hope they are focused on being authentic to themselves. I think when you are thinking about business, yes, you have to be realistic and sort of go through all of the core questions before you're entering into a business. But I think some of the things that we naturally gravitate to is God's way of like speaking as to what you should be into. And so I would be conscious, very tapped into your own preferences and likes and see how that in some way can be profitable. I'm a very organized person. I like to be on time in terms, I like travel. There's a lot of things that naturally are within me that helps me do what I do. Like I say this even about pilots. Like I tried to go to flight school. I was like, this is not for me. But I watch these, young pilots come to us, and there is a certain knack, and I don't know, like there's a certain general connectivity that they have for what they do. And so I just really believed in being tapped into knowing yourself and being authentic to who you are, and that really does help guide your path. Thankfully, I wasn't pressured in any direction. I found my way. But that happens when you're not trying to be someone else.
Wow.
You know?
Last question. What's next for Rexy Rolle?
we will get this dating thing sorted out. So now I turn to you.
Hey! First of all, Find in Harmony podcast. You're connecting people. You gotta go through Big Drew though. You can't be just pulling up. I need to see the prerequisites. We not going for ordinary. Okay, there's Rexy here. But honestly, I understand. That's awesome.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure,
This is
man.
such a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an awesome conversation. We got to do this sometime. And honestly, friendship, I'm extending our friendship to you as well.
You.
And this is not the fluffy thing. You know
We're
what I mean?
safe people.
Right.
I feel that. I see that.
Because honestly,
yes.
and I did this on camera, honestly, because I felt that too, because I have that. Because sometimes you'd be like, oh, should I say something? And it's like, no, extend. You just never know, And it is if that seed yields fruit, it is what it is, and you move on, etc. But it's so important for people who are just honestly have a certain level of mindset and where they're trying to go to connect with people who understand the struggles of or can relate, but also in terms of just a lending or anything of that matter. So
I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much.
It's real, man. So that wraps up our awesome podcast with Rexy, and we'll see you next time.